Right.
I don't work the road. Like I lived on the road for years, and it was impossible to stay healthy. I mean, when I toured with John Pinette, then it was really impossible to stay healthy.
Wow.
Yeah, when me and John were on the road together all those years, he used to joke because I would leave for like a couple of weeks, and I'd work out and lose all the weight, and then I'd come back, and he'd be like, "You're gonna lose." I'd gain 15 pounds in a 2-week tour with him. It was nuts.
Dude, what's crazy about Pinette was he started losing weight, and that's like around the time when he passed.
So he had his stomach stapled years before that, so he couldn't eat a lot.
Right, yeah.
A lot of it was just skin. So even when I was going out with him, even though we'd go to a restaurant, and the restaurant would bring us so much, he wouldn't even have to order it. Like, they knew him.
Right.
They'd just fill the table up with food, and he would just pick it, all the different. He liked to taste all the different things.
Yeah, yeah.
But I grew up with, I ate everything. I'm like,
Right,
whatever left over, Daddy's taking down. And he used to laugh. He's like, I'm watching you eat. He's like, and he'd eat late. Like, we'd eat in the hotel room at 2 in the morning. He'd have food waiting for us at like the hotel room sometime, like at the suite. We'd go.
Right,
But
yeah.
it was just late eating and just stuff like that. But he couldn't. And then what happened was he had gotten all the skin removed.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, right before he died, I was with him the week before. He looked great. He was wearing like regular jeans. Like, it was amazing. He had lost. He had had like 40 pounds of skin removed or whatever it was.
Damn, holy
shit.
And
it was unfortunate. But
that sucks. Imagine that your whole life you're battling weight, you finally conquer it. And then that's it. That's like,
well, that was the only thing he was battling too. So it was hard. But
dude,
he looked great. I mean, he looked tremendous. He was light on his feet, and I mean, I saw pictures of him back in the day, and I was like, couldn't even recognize. It was like he's like I was a planet. Him and Sinatra together, like he was really big back then, man. When he was opening for Frank.
Probably. Wow. I didn't know that he opened for Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, he opened. I have stories. Like, I mean, this could go on forever.
He's one of the funniest comedians I've ever seen live. Ever.
Yeah.
I was literally in tears, stomach. He was in Raleigh. Did you travel with him to Good Nights in Raleigh?
No, he wouldn't bring me to a small club like that.
Right,
he might, but if he was working on something.
I didn't know. Maybe I saw you there back.
We
in the
did
day.
the improvs and stuff down in Florida because those held a lot of people.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mainly just did the theaters and casinos and stuff with them. But
Yeah,
we do here. He loved Governors, and he would do like 10 shows here to prep for like one of his specials that we wrote. We did like the warm up here, so he flew from here to go tape it.
When did he die?
He died in 2014.
14.
I want to say because it was Eva wasn't born yet, my daughter, so it was like right before that.
Wow.
Yep, it was.
Where were you when? Were you in town with him when this went?
No. So what happened was I was in L.A. with him, and then we did the Comedy and Magic in Hermosa Beach. It's a very famous club, one of the best clubs. He was doing a warm up because he was coming back from being sick, and we were gonna go on tour. The next week he was doing the Improv in Brea, maybe, or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but what happened was the whole thing had gotten canceled. We were supposed to be away. He was ill. He's getting better. We're going to go out there, blah, blah, blah. I fly out there. We meet. We're writing just to get, like, going again. He has Brea. I couldn't do it. I flew back. I don't know what I had. I had something else that I booked. And he's like, no, go do that. Plus, I was like, I don't want to be away for 2 weeks. I just had my second son. I think my wife might have been pregnant with Kristen. Kristen might have been pregnant. I can't remember. No, she wasn't pregnant with my daughter yet. So, my daughter was born in 2015, so this is 2014, definitely. So she wasn't pregnant with him, but I had my son, Jack.
Right.
Yes. So I flew back. I'm sorry this is long, but I flew back because I was like, he's like, no, don't be away for 2 weeks. Go home. So I went home. I had gigs booked here, and that's where he did the weekend there. I had my friend open for him in California, and she was like, it's going great, it's going great. Then he flew back. We talked on the phone for like 5 days every day.
Wow.
And then he went to Pittsburgh for his niece's wedding, and that's where he passed away.
Right.
At the hotel room of his niece's wedding. I didn't talk to him for 2 days. So I found out on the Sunday. Last time I talked to him was on the Thursday or maybe Friday morning.
Wow.
And I got a text from somebody else saying, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I was like, I think you're texting the wrong person. He's like, this is Tim. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I think you need to Google and look in the news. I'm like, for what? He's like, he goes, I think John Pinette, something happened to him. But I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I would be the first one. So I did it, and it just popped up like 5 minutes. It was only 5 minutes on the AP, and then my phone rang, and it was his manager, and then it was like a whole thing. It was like I was actually driving out to McGuire's.
Oh wow!
I had to jump in the car because I had I might have been headlining here.
Right, right.
Thursday,
yeah.
Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday I had McGuire's. I think that might have been it. And then I was driving. While I was driving, I was like, I got to go do this show. Like, I can't.
Right, yeah, but you must
Now,
have been devastated.
I was devastated, but I'm like, I got to do the show. I need the money now because I had a whole 2 years booked with John.
Right, yeah.
Basically, that was going to pay for. I was going to close on a house the next week.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Which I already was closing on because everything was signed, money was already transferred.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, but my wife was not going to go back to work. Like, it was the whole life-changing experience.
Yeah.
Like, I lost everything.
Wow, damn.
And I was like, and on the ride out there, my phone was just like, bum, 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 like text messages. I must have had 50 or 60 text messages between Massapequa and McGuire's. And and then I just texted everybody back, and I'm just like, just bring me up. I'll close the show. And then I got in the car and I drove home.
Wow.
But I didn't process it probably until his funeral.
Right,
Yeah.
because your mind's blown. There's so many things going on.
Yeah, and then you were in survival mode because you got kids. You just got this house. What was your biggest part of your income just left because you put all your eggs in that one basket.
Right.
You know, and it's just you just survive. You know, you just.
So what did you do?
Just got to work. That's the only way I could say it.
Yeah.
Just got to work. Like, didn't think about it. Had enough to pay the mortgage. Had my writing job. And I did that, and just my wife still took
And that's with the radio station.
She took 2 years off, and then she's like, I got to go back to work just for the health insurance because then my health problems started kicking in for me and stuff like that. So, it's still survival mode. It never gets better, you know.
Right,
I was on track good, and then the pandemic hit, and then it went down again. But
always unexpected things.
Yeah, you never can control it, and it's just. But that was like devastating. I told my wife, I think I didn't mourn that for like a couple of years. I think like 2 years later, I was still in total shock. And then what happened was they would have all these like John Pinette tribute nights, and they'd want me to be at them. So like I did one in L.A. They did this huge thing for him at the Improv, and I had to speak at it.
Wow.
Then they won at Caroline's, and I was just like, I don't want to speak at these things anymore because I was just walking on stage and I'd just break down within 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
I'd give this great speech and then I'd break down.
So, man, with John Pinette, you said you wrote with him too. You wrote.
Yeah. That was how I started really with him. Yeah.
So do you have any of any of his classic bits? Were you were you part of any of those?
Some of them. Yep.
Like 4 hours.
No, that was way before me. Yeah. So, like, he actually was about to do a special. That was the whole tour we were going to do before he passed, and then he was going to tape a special.
Right.
That's most of that material I have on my computer still.
Wow.
In a file of jokes that people saw at clubs, but some didn't, and some stuff we were still working on. But he had an hour already. Like, it was just kind of polishing up the hour.
Right, yeah.
And then I'm sure in that year there would have been another hour that came out of it.
Right, yeah. He was a powerhouse. And
you never knew what he was going to do. Like, we'd write material, but I'd be like, open with sometimes to get him focused, I would just be like, just open with these 2 jokes and then close with these 2 jokes. Right. And he'd be like, okay. And if he did that, everything in between, he would just, even though it was written, you didn't know what he was going to segue because he could segue out of nowhere and then come back to the joke 20 minutes later. Yeah. Like, he could get off on a tangent and 20 minutes later be like, oh, yeah, and then I was talking about what happened at the mall. And then the whole place would go nuts because they didn't know where it was coming from, you know?
Yeah, man, there's great comics and then there's amazing comics.
Yeah, he's legendary.
He's legendary. Just the way his persona on stage, the way he told the joke, the way he set up, his facial expressions, everything about him.
It was a perfect, in my mind, of physical talent, comedic talent, writing talent, and performance talent. He's just a great performer. He was a great actor. He could sing. He was a musical. He could do musical. Like, he was just he had everything. You know, they call it like what is it? A triple threat. He was a quadruple threat.
Yeah.
He was a quadruple threat.
Man.
Sing, dance, comedy, act. He was a quadruple threat. So,
dude, I remember he had a bit about some kind of bread that he was like, it's like a loofah. I could take a bath with it.
He would change jokes like that all the time.
Yeah.
But the best stuff he had wasn't even about food at the end. Like, we were doing a lot of stuff just about him in situations that drove him crazy. A lot of stuff about TV, like at the time it was all these crazy reality shows. He was doing a lot of stuff on reality shows on the Amish Mafia and stuff like that. There was a show called the Amish Mafia.
Yeah.
He had it was so funny. He would do stuff on the the crab fishing show. I forget what it's called. The
Oh yeah, with
deadliest catch. He was
Deadliest
just
Catch.
like, it's like, if you haven't watched the show, let me break it down for you. They go out and they fish for crabs. Sometimes they catch some crabs. Sometimes they don't catch some crabs. Then the next day they go out. They fish for crabs. Sometimes they catch the crabs. Now you should have saw the season finale. Phenomenal. They went out, catch for crabs. And then they caught some, but then they didn't. It's like he would just go on and on. It was so funny.
When you write for him, like you know, obviously you're using his voice, so like you know, you got to feel like in tune with him to some degree, right?
So the key to write for him, I found at first it was really hard because I didn't know what to do because he was always just all over, as far as structure. And they were like, we want him to. He's like, I need more structure to do these specials. He liked it, you know, because he was so good on the stage. He could just. So what I would do is I would sit outside. I'd have a desk right where he would be performing. Unless we were at a club, I'd be in agreement with the TV. But usually on the stage, I'd have like a little desk and I'd have a paper, and I'd write opening and closing, and then I'd listen to the bit. I'd write the bit, and then I listened to him do the bit with all the funny lines in it. And if he said something new that I never heard before, I would write that down. And then I'd try to write 5 other things that went with that.
Wow.
And then I'd go on to the next thing. And then I'd listen to the same thing. Okay, this is the bit. I know the bit. This is funny. This is funny. Okay, I never heard him say that before. That got a laugh.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
and then what we would do is before he went on, we would riff about, oh, this is funny when you did this. This is funny. And then I would say the lines, and he'd be like, "That's hysterical, right?" Then he would like, "Oh, let's do that." And then
wow,
and sometimes he'd do that with me. He'd watch me, and he'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna do this next time."
Yeah,
and then he would talk about my act, like we would do that. But usually that's how I did it with him. And then I'd be like, and then he might bring up a topic I never heard before.
Right. Yeah.
About something that was just in his mind because he watched it on TV last night in the hotel room, and I'd have to sit there, and then I would be like,
just noting
as fast as I could. Those were the most important things, but usually it was like if he had a bit, and then always another premise would come out of something that he said about something else.
Wow.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.